Well, since I was in college, I was very interested in watches, and it was actually like a natural progression of a lot of things. I was unsatisfied with the work that I was doing at the time, working for a large company, and I really, since I was a little kid, I loved watches. So I had gotten specifically into Rolex watches when I was in college, and that developed into this really crazy passion where I was like sleeping, like dreaming, um, looking at watches like all waking hours and in my sleep. The main reason I think that it's so fascinating is that they weren't designed to be collectors. First and foremost, it was always about the usability and the tool watch factor, but over time, because of the, I guess you could say the coolness of the brand or whatever, it attracted like a very loyal following. It also didn't hurt that James Bond in the books was wearing a Rolex. And Rolex was a great sponsor of all these great things like the Everest climb, all these arts initiatives and whatnot. So it really is like a natural and organic progression of the brand and a testament to how strong it is that it has such a loyal following. Well, this question could be answered in many different ways depending on like price factor, desirability factor, rarity, whatnot. But I think you know there are many watches at many different price points that would fit in this category. If I had to pick five off the top of my head, first and foremost would be a very nice Rolex Paul Newman Daytona. It could be a pump pusher version or a screw down version one, but really for serious collectors that are into the more expensive models, like you usually start with a Paul Newman. So I'd say first and foremost, like a very nice Paul Newman Daytona. Second, an early Milgauss reference 6541. They have like a lightning hand, which Rolex has reused in the newer Milgausses. They're very rare and desirable, and I think that again is one of the like holy grail pieces for Rolex collectors. A third piece perhaps would be moving in like a different price point or whatever, but just a really nice and patinaed or like aged looking Submariner. It could be something as simple as a 5513. Typically starts in the $5,000 range or whatever, but to me that epitomizes the classic Rolex tool watch look, the form versus function, and it's just like a very classic watch to have. A fourth one I'd throw in there would probably be a day date. The day dates, first watch to show the day and the date, and they're made in precious metals. And I think a really nice day date, perhaps one with a colored Stella dial, would be a really nice addition to the collection. And then last but not least, maybe a GMT Master. It could be a really early one, first series with a big light bezel insert, or a later one. But it's just interesting because, again, that was a Rolex first there to have the 2 time zone watch and the 24-hour hand, which aided pilots originally, and it was designed with Pan Am. So those are 5 watches that I think would round out like a pretty nice collection. Vintage Rolex collecting hobby is, as you said, filled with like subtleties, and it can be a very daunting task to find the right dealer to sell you the right stuff, to learn information about yourself, just to be an informed customer. Online, there's a lot of resources available to collectors, things such as like Vintage Rolex Forum, Time Zone, even searching past auctions from like Christie's auction, from Christie's. You're able to see a wide scope of pieces and learn about their history. And the subtleties, such as you said, on some watches, a Submariner with a Submariner in red can be worth, double, triple, or sometimes even more than a one with Submariner in white. But again, there's many different versions, variations, the time frames, and the pricing really varies there. Things such as like an underline, all these little subtleties that people might not see originally, initially, add to rarity or desirability of the pieces, and again, sometimes drastically affect the price. I think that generally speaking, if you do your due diligence, look online, find out what you can, and deal with reputable people, dealers, or auction houses, that will probably lead you in the right direction. The great thing about Rolex is that the brand itself covers like a very wide spectrum of pricing. You could start out with a very basic level one for a couple $1,000s, and certainly go to over $1 million. I think that again, Rolex is most known for their tool watches, and there's always like an entry level price point for a Rolex tool watch, in my opinion, is probably $3,000 to $6,000. For that price range, you could find, a very nice Submariner, a very nice GMT Master, or even if you're not into the sports watches, and it's not really a tool watch, but like some early DateJusts and whatnot, early Explorers even. There's a lot of directions that you can like kind of start off and guide your collection to. To me, the most classic Rolex, again, there's so many different ones and so many iconic watches that Rolex made, but for me, it's probably the Date 8. The Date 8 also has a nickname of like the President. There's a lot of old photographs you can see of, Lyndon Johnson, JFK, all these old presidents wearing it. It's a very elegant and I don't want to say necessarily purposeful, but it's a very useful feature to be able to see the day and date, and it is a symbol of prestige, and I think like epitomizes a lot of what Rolex stands for. I would like to see them make some more complicated watches. This year they introduced the Skydweller, which is a very exciting piece. But I think what a lot of collectors or enthusiasts are waiting for would be like a complicated piece with a perpetual calendar, perhaps, or a chronograph perpetual calendar in a similar vein as some of their earlier pieces, like a 8171 moon phase is a very large watch with the moon phase, and just a regular calendar, but perhaps they can make one with a perpetual calendar moon phase, or even something similar to like a Jean-Claude Keeley, but with a perpetual calendar and a chronograph. It would be something similar to some of the models that Patek Philippe makes, and it would bring them to a new audience as well. Well, I think, again, a lot of people, there's a lot of Daytona collectors out there, and I think it would be nice if they made a stainless steel Daytona with a black ceramic bezel. This year, or a few years ago, they came out with the new rose gold Daytonas with a black ceramic bezel. So it should be easy in theory for them to make a black bezel for the Daytonas in steel. But I think a lot of collectors, myself included, are eagerly looking forward to that. I think the Rolex market being quite robust, is susceptible to, upswings and downswings, just like any other market is. But the most important thing is in recent memory, with the recession of like 2007, 2008, you saw a lot of prices going down for these collectible watches. But again, like as any cyclical thing, what goes down goes back up, and vice versa. So we've already seen pricing on some things that have way exceeded even the highs of before the last recession. So I think it's a very cyclical market and generally very robust. I think right now, Rolex has been in this transition phase from moving like a lot of like old models and new models they have. Like the old Explorer 2s, they replace it with the new ones with that more slightly vintage look. And then also the Submariners with the traditional steel bezel have all been slowly phased out to be, to be ceramic bezel ones. So I think good buys right now are something future collectible would be, like the older style Submariners with a steel bezel, or something that is limited production, not necessarily limited edition, but limited production, like the ceramic green Submariners are also very nice. But I think, those two are probably going to be pretty collectible in the future. So I happen to be very enthusiastic about the Skydweller. I think it's a first step in another direction for Rolex, showing a very complicated movement, but also maintaining that kind of like well-known and well-established Rolex aesthetic. The mechanism and the way of setting the annual calendar by rotating the bezel is ingenious. Nobody else has thought of that. I think that looks, obviously it depends on beauty's in the eye of the beholder, but for me, I happen to find it like a very interesting watch, and I'm sure they're going to be selling as many as they make. So if you see one and you like it, you should definitely snap one up.